Hello, everybody. My name is Augustin. I'm a singer, songwriter, composer, and arranger. Over decades, I've written hundreds of arrangements of all kinds, and I can say I have a little experience. If you want to see that I know what I'm talking about, just browse my channel. There you will find some examples of my work. In this video, I just want to explain some simple principles of writing for a horn section in a jazz band. May it be a small band or even a big band, the basic principles are all the same. To make it understandable more easily, I sketched up a little musical example, a simple minor 7 dominant 5 progression that looks like this. So here we go. In jazzy eighth chains, like for example very often heard in saxophone sections, every melody tone is harmonized for itself, which means every melody tone has its own chord. The lower voices are set in block chords below the melody note. This technique is called four-way closed. There are variations of this technique like drop 2 or drop 2 and 4, but in this video I will only deal with the basic four-way closed technique. Hereby one has to have in mind some quite simple principles. Here are the most important 3 points. Number 1. Avoid tone repetitions. Avoid tone repetitions, especially in a faster tempo. Musicians do not like them and they can interrupt the flow of a section. Even if you have the best musicians at your disposal, who of course will play everything without complaining, it makes life easier for them, and as we all know, what we like to do, we do much better. Second, no much bigger jumps than the melody. In the lower voices of a section, do not write much larger interval jumps than the melody. Here again is to provide a smooth flow. Exceptions are desired special effects, of course. And third, avoid flat 9 intervals. Avoid flat 9 intervals except between top note and the root in the 7 flat 9 chord, especially when writing in a more traditional style. Of course, here again, there may be exceptions from this rule, but until you have gained greater experience, you do well to keep this in mind. And last but not least, just to have it mentioned, especially when writing for reed and brass sections, always have in mind to take care of the low interval limits. There's a lot of material on the internet to find about, so I will not further discuss them here. So, let's dive into some details. To smoothly harmonize a typical jazz melody, we use so-called approaches to harmonize notes that are not a chord note of the current chord. An approach is a harmonization which functionally connects one or two notes of a melody to a target note. In our examples here we have the last note of these 4 notes. There we have 3 main types of approaches. There's a chromatic approach, dominant approach, and the diatonic approach, which is anyway self-explaining. And of course, there are many combinations of these 3 types, for example, double chromatic or double dominant approaches, but this will not bother us here. So, let's have a look at the little example I've prepared. So we have 5 variations of quite the same melody, 2 bars, a simple A minor D7 G major 7 chord progression. In all these examples, I will only discuss the 3rd note of the given phrase, which here in this case is the G sharp, over here is the B flat, over here is the B, and so on. Let's go to sketch 1. It's the chromatic approach. That means that the whole chord approaches the following chord strictly chromatically. This is a very simple situation. The 3rd tone of our phrase, which is a G sharp, leads chromatically into the following note, the A, which is the 5th of the plain D7, which are harmonized with an E instead of the D. The E is the 9th of the chord and in the section serves as a substitute for the root. I think this is common knowledge. And this example sounds like this. Sketch 2. Both chromatic and dominant approach sounds like this. Dominant approach means that the approaching note has a dominant function In this case, it's either an A7 flat 9 or a plain E flat 7 as indicated in the bass line. A7 and E flat 7 are basically the same chord and function as tritonus substitute for each other, so-called sub 5. A word about diminished chords. I would only use diminished chords if there is really no other solution or I want a special effect. Diminished chords are functionally the scene, nothing and everything, and I prefer sober solution. But it may help you to carry on if you could not come up with a better solution. However, and there is a very good sentence, quote, "If it sounds good, it is good." So now let's carry on with sketch 3. This is a dominant approach. In this case, I have changed the melody tone from a B flat into a B over here, and it sounds like this. Here we have an A7 chord, which is a dominant chord to the D7. But what do we do with the E flat over here? Because an A7 contains an E and not an E flat. So, if we would keep the E, it would cause a tone repetition, as I explained in our introduction. This is not a very good solution for the player, so I just changed the E into an E flat, and now the chord is an A7 sharp 11. We could also change the E into an F, and then we would get an A7 flat 13, but then we would have a bigger jump in the third voice. It would be okay for a good player, but however, I would like to prefer this solution. And so I always use simple tricks like this. You wouldn't even mention it, but it's still a strict dominant approach, as you also can see indicated in the bass line. Finally, we come to sketch 4 and sketch 5. It sounds like this. First we listen to sketch 4. As you can see here, I've changed the melody from an A, like here and here, into a B. And you can see the 6 of the D7, which the B is, as a substitute for the 5th. So functionally doesn't make any difference. And in this case, in sketch 4, the B is approached strictly chromatically, but in sketch 5, I approached the B with a dominant approach. Therefore, I did not write an A sharp, I did write the B flat. And here you can see it's an E flat 7, or you can also see it as an A7 flat 9. But in this case, I should have written the D flat as a C sharp. But of course, it sounds the same, especially in jazz. So now we are through with all our 5 examples, and I hope you see through. So, thanks for watching until the very end. I hope I could deliver some useful hints for your arranging of jazzy melody lines. At first it may sound very complicated, but trust me it isn't once you get more familiar with the issue. Please do not hesitate to drop a comment with your opinions and suggestions for maybe a new video of this kind. Keep writing great music and enjoy your lives. Goodbye.